The diplomatic chamber aboard the Meridian station hummed with the subtle vibration of artificial gravity generators. Representatives from 12 species sat around the polished titanium steel conference table, their varied physiologies creating a bizarre menagerie of galactic civilization. At the head of the table, Ambassador Keth 9 of the Hegemony adjusted his crystalline vocal modulators, preparing to address what he considered the most primitive delegation present. Captain Marcus Rodriguez sat perfectly still, his weathered hands folded on the table's surface. The olive-drab uniform of the Terran Colonial Marines looked almost quaint compared to the sleek environmental suits and biomechanical enhancements worn by the other delegates. Beside him, his tactical knife rested in its sheath, a simple polymer grip housing 20 centimeters of molecularly aligned steel. The Hegemony questions, Keth 9's voice resonated through harmonic frequencies, the continued reliance of human military forces on such antiquated implements. His optical sensors focused on the knife. In an age of plasma weaponry, quantum disruptors, and neural pacification fields, why do your soldiers still carry bladed weapons? The Veltar delegate, a ethereal being composed of shifting energy matrices, flickered with what might have been amusement. Indeed, Captain Rodriguez. Our analysis indicates that human military doctrine has remained stagnant for centuries. These primitive tools serve no logical purpose in modern warfare. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled delegates. The Zephyrian representatives' gill slits fluttered in what Rodriguez recognized as their species' equivalent of laughter. Even the usually stoic Granite Collective's silicon-based envoy exhibited microvibrations indicating skepticism. Rodriguez remained motionless for several seconds, his dark eyes scanning the faces, or approximations thereof, around the table. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable, a technique he'd learned during his 20-year career dealing with hostile interrogations and diplomatic standoffs. Finally, he reached for his knife. The blade whispered from its sheath with practiced ease. In one fluid motion, Rodriguez drove the point deep into the conference table's surface. The metal shrieked as the molecularly sharp edge bit through the titanium steel like it was soft wood. The knife stood upright, vibrating slightly from the force of impact. "Because guns jam," Rodriguez said simply. The chamber fell silent. Even the ambient hum of the station's system seemed to pause. Rodriguez leaned back in his chair, his expression unchanged. 3 months ago, my unit was deployed to Kepler 442b. Atmospheric storms played havoc with our plasma rifles' containment fields. Sand got into the quantum chambers. Half our neural disruptors fried when moisture shorted their delicate circuitry. He nodded toward the embedded blade. But steel doesn't care about storms. It doesn't need power cells or quantum matrices. It doesn't have targeting computers that can be hacked or EMP-vulnerable components. The Veltar delegate's energy patterns shifted nervously. Surely, Captain, such primitive methods are ineffective against modern defensive systems. Tell that to the Catharian warforms we encountered in the mining tunnels, Rodriguez replied. 12 feet tall, armored in bioceramic plating that shrugged off our most advanced weapons. Their neural networks were too distributed for neural pacification to work effectively. He tapped the knife's handle. But even the most sophisticated organism has weak points. Joints. Sensory organs. Neural clusters. Keth 9's optical sensors flickered rapidly, a sign of processing overload. You engaged such creatures in melee combat. When your plasma rifle's containment field collapses and your backup weapons are buried under a cave-in, you use what works. Rodriguez's voice carried the weight of lived experience. Technology fails. Equipment breaks. Ammunition runs out. But a good blade? He gestured to the knife still protruding from the table. A good blade is reliable. Silent. Doesn't emit signatures that can be tracked. Doesn't need to be recharged. The Granite Collective's representative spoke in grinding, subsonic tones. The human demonstrates practical wisdom. Our own forces encountered similar failures during the Procyon campaign. Perhaps we have become too dependent on sophisticated systems. Rodriguez pulled the knife free with a sharp twist, examining its edge for damage before sliding it back into its sheath. In the heat of battle, complexity is your enemy. The simplest solution is usually the one that saves your life. The chamber remained quiet as 12 species contemplated the paradox of human military philosophy, that in an age of technological marvels, sometimes the oldest tools remain the most trustworthy.